Argh, not another podcast about book publishing, hosted by William May, in which the author finds himself embroiled in a podcast about book publishing.
Hi, this is William May, and I'm here with Denise Marsa.
Hey.
To start off this episode of Argh, I think it's episode 11 we decided.
Yep, that's the one.
And this is kind of a special episode. We're going to be introducing what I would say is like, what do we call it? A little bit of a side project, I guess, connected to the launch of Blaze Without Burning.
Yes.
Denise has been working with another musician to create a sort of audio companion. And I'm going to let you sort of like introduce that. And then I think you're going to, we have a little bit of an interview that we recorded where you and your collaborator, Paul, sat down and talked. So let me turn it over to you so you can sort of introduce that and take it away.
Awesome. So that's what this episode is. That's why we're giving it a special introduction. It is actually two separate conversations, two companions of conversation coming together.
So right now we'll turn it over to the recorded conversation between you and Paul with, I think Meggie and Melissa were both there. And then afterwards, we'll rejoin together for a conversation with everybody.
Here we are for another episode. What is this, Meggie? Episode 11 or 12?
11.
Oh, 1-1. I love 11-11 on the clock. Perfect. And we have a special guest today on Argh, not another podcast about book publishing. We've got Paul A. Harvey in from London, England. Hey, Paul.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thank you. A bit of hay fever, that's it.
Pollen. Those bees. So we are going to talk today, which we really haven't even announced it. Paul and I worked on an audio companion for William May's debut book, Blaze Without Burning. And when we say audio book, audio companion for the book, people think, oh, he's going to be reading the poems. Yes, we're going to do that. But we also put together 25 tracks, short tracks, that kind of coincide with the essence or the feel of the poems. So Paul and I discussed the project, and I asked him if he'd like to work with me on it, and he was game. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Paul's career, because Paul's been also, I don't know if you people know this that listen to the podcast, but Paul has been editing our podcast pretty much from day one. So after we do our part, kind of fixes it and kind of masters it, make sure the level of the music, everything's good. So he's been an integral part of the podcast. Right on. So what I was thinking, Meggie, because Meggie's on the call, we're waiting for Melissa. We're going to see if she can jump on the call as well. Meggie, how are you?
I'm good around Porto. We are actually, I was thinking, Paul and I are in the same time zone, and it's the first time I'm actually talking to him. We've been exchanging emails, and I'm, really excited and curious to find out a little bit more about the person who's been doing such a great work for us.
That's awesome. And so everyone knows that you were living in Porto, but now you're not living in Porto. You're visiting Porto, so tell us where you are now and why you're visiting.
No, I'm around Porto. I'm in Braga. That's I need to get used to saying I'm in Braga. But yeah, I'm around Porto, 50 kilometers, and I'm not sure in miles, but I'm at home around Porto, 50 kilometers from Porto in Braga.
Cool. And any pollen there? Any kind of hay fever going on? I think I'm getting a little here in New York, to be honest. This morning I was sneezing a bit. I'm like, what is this? Okay, so Portugal's clear of pollen. Yay.
Yeah, it's really springy and sunny, and today it feels like summer. And the only fur I have around is my cat's fur, so like that's the only thing that I can. It's flying around.
Yeah, it's a new kitty. Cool.
Yeah.
New kitty. It's raining here in New York. It's very rainy, very dark, but all is well otherwise. Well, let's not get into everything, but it's all well in our little community. That's cool.
In our little bubble.
Yeah, exactly. So, music and the arts helps keep the bubble happening. So, Meggie, I thought maybe we would start off with you asking the questions, and then I'll jump in.
So, as I said, like Denise and you know each other. I pretty much know about your work. So I've been wondering, what part of England are you from, and where do you live now? In what area?
Oh, where am I from originally?
Yeah.
Well, I'm from a county called Lincolnshire, actually, which is about 100 miles north of London. And I live in North London now, and I have done since I moved here, actually. You probably don't. Do you know North London?
I pretty much know a little bit. I've been only to Edinburgh.
All right, Scotland.
So
yeah.
Scotland. Never been to London. It's London and New York City are the two cities that are on my list, but still didn't have the chance to visit.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what year did you move to London, Paul? I don't even know that.
What year?
Yeah.
About 1980.
Oh, cool. Okay.
The end of 79, 80, yeah.
Yeah. I think I saw Melissa. Are you on? I think I saw something in a flash of Melissa. I'm not sure.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, how are you?
Okay. How are you?
Hey. I hope your dad. How's your dad? I know it's a tough time.
Oh, not great, but it's a story for another day.
We're saying our prayers for sure. And we are recording. We're in recording mode, just so you know. Okay, and what we're doing is you can say hi to Paul, and then you're going to ask a couple questions. Maggie's asking 1 and 2, and you're going to ask 3 and 4, if that's cool.
The questions are in the comment section, so if they should probably pop in for you as well.
Okay, I'm not looking at that. I have my phone just on my speaker. But here's what we know so far about Paul. It's a lot of pollen right now in London. That's what I heard. We heard.
Pollen, yes.
That's great. Also, he's from North Lincolnshire. Lincolnshire?
Lincolnshire.
Lincolnshire. And he moved in 1980. And he lives, and he sort of stays, he likes North. Obviously, he's a favorite of North. So he's in North London. Yes?
Yes, north of the river, yeah.
Is there a town, or do you not want to tell people for fear they'll come and ask for autographs? What's the town?
What's that?
Where the actual? Oh, you just say North London. That's it.
Oh, what's Highgate?
Oh, you live in Highgate?
Well, more or less, yes. On the periphery of Highgate, not in the village.
Yeah, that's where Julia DePaia used to live. Remember?
Not really.
Oh, yeah, she had a beautiful home in Highgate when I lived there. Okay, that's enough. Let's go. I'm sorry. I just get excited when I hear certain things about London. Okay, Meggie, take over. Next question.
Yeah, so now that we know where you're from and where do you live, I would say, when did you start playing guitar, and what was the first lesson that you had?
Why?
Yeah, do you remember why? Yeah. Did you take any lessons? Was it just a passion, or something that you decided that?
I think a lot of people from that period, from my era, they pretty much self-taught. I had 1 or 2 lessons, but that's about it, really. You just listen to records and try to emulate what people were doing, you know. I listened to a lot of blues records when I was younger.
I love blues.
B.B. King, John Lee Hooker, and all that sort of thing. So I suppose you just absorb what they're doing and try and figure out for yourself. So yeah, pretty much self-taught, really.
And do you have a favorite guitar player?
Do I have a guitar favorite? I find that very difficult to answer. I mean, I suppose a consummate guitar player for me would be Jeff Beck, who died fairly recently. Very lyrical and poetic player, actually. Can't compare him to anybody. He was pretty idiosyncratic, really. So I'd probably name him. But
and I had no idea you were self-taught, Paul, because I'm self-taught, but I thought can you read music? Did you teach yourself how to read music?
No, my father was a pianist, and I did learn to play the piano for a while, but I just didn't connect with it for some reason. So I could read music at the time, but when you don't do something, you just lose that, you lose that skill, really. So I'm pretty much an ear player.
That's cool. I had no idea. So am I. We got 2 ear players, so we got 4 ears.
2 ears. 4 ears.
Right on. Okay, cool. Melissa, why don't you ask the next couple questions, if you're cool with that? If you're up to that. If not, that's cool. Let me know.
I was just scrolling it over to them. Who are some of who are some of your favorite artists you have worked with or recorded over the years?
Artists I've recorded with.
And worked with, yeah.
Or worked with. Well, there's a band called Prefab Sprout I played with for a while. Some of these names won't be very familiar to you if you're younger. Band called Prefab Sprout. I played with a band called Ellis, Beggs and Howard for a couple of years, and most of our success was in Europe, actually. That was great. I really enjoyed that. I was allowed to sort of be creative within that context. We did have an album out, which has just come onto Spotify, actually.
Oh, cool.
Called Homelands.
We can share that in the...
Anybody wants to check it out? It's a pretty decent album, actually, yeah. From 1988.
Homelands.
Yeah, A Different World. Yeah, Homelands, yeah.
And what about Tom Robinson?
Oh, yeah, of course. And I played with him for quite a few years, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
see, never too late. Yeah. That's
Sorry,
who you were playing with.
Sorry?
I think when I first met you, that's who you were playing with.
That's right, yes. Yeah, we were playing a lot. And I co-wrote and recorded an album with him, yeah.
Yeah, and I love that one song, Spain. I think I sent it to you, Meg. Remember that song, Spain? Do
Yeah.
you? Love that song. I love the acoustic version. Yeah.
The what version?
Spain. Acoustic version of Spain.
Oh,
Spain.
yeah. That's a lovely tune, yeah.
It's a gorgeous song. And I love how you play on it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Melissa?
Yeah, and what guitars did you use on the recording with Denise and on the music audio companion for Blaze Without Burning?
Oh, what guitars? Well, I pretty much use a Fender Stratocaster and an acoustic guitar, basically a 6-string, and I've got a 12-string from about 1964, I think it is, which sounds nice, but it's quite hard to play. But and I play bass as well, so I've got a precision bass. I think that's pretty much it. Oh no, and a Gibson SG as well.
There you go. I remember that guitar.
So yeah, that's pretty much what I use. It's yeah.
Yeah, I had a 12-string, and he said yes, and so I was happy to hear that. I don't remember exactly which tracks you used, but I think I said for some reason I thought it would add some nuance. Did you end up using the 12-string on any of the Blaze Without Burning tracks, Paul?
That's a good point. I can't remember. I certainly did on your tracks.
I can hear.
Yeah.
I can't tell it on the audio companion. I listened and I thought I heard it on one track, but like you said, it's we kind of, we actually worked pretty quickly on that. It was sort of Blaze Without Burning. We blazed, but we burned. So quick, I'm going to ask a few questions. Cool. And had you ever written music to poems before?
I think possibly one, because I thought about this. It was a Byron poem, actually.
Oh, cool.
Called She Walks in Beauty. And a friend of mine who I used to work with as a singer, he used the poem, and we wrote a song around it, basically.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
when we first talked about it, you said you hadn't, but then you thought some more. That's cool. Byron,
Yeah,
that's
I hadn't remembered. She Walks in Beauty by Byron, yeah.
She Walks in Beauty. Yeah, I know the poem. It's interesting. It's good company for William May. And so, do you want to share a little bit about the process? Because I know we started one way and then we ended up another way. You want to share?
The process?
The process of our writing and working on the tracks. Remember how it started and how it ended up?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of reading the poem and then just kind of absorbing the emotional feeling that you get from reading it, and then trying to express that in some initial way through your instrument, and then building on that really. And
the challenge was not a challenge, but one of the things that we talked about that was unique about this is the poems. The book is twinned, so you have, and I was thinking pages because as the book, as people read the book, thinking about the experience. But there's a poem on, let's say, page 5, and then there's another, the same poem on page like 17 or 18. Like there's twins, they twin. And they don't twin back, they twin per section. So there's the first section and then there's the second section. So the poem titles are repeated, but not the same poem. And so there, I think, Melissa, how would you say the poems, I know he called it twinning, and you wrote, so the press release, that we've been working with. Tell me how are the twinnings? Are the poems like bringing up different emotions? How would you kind of describe it to listeners? The twinning.
I would say kind of bringing in different emotions, but tying in like the same, type of theme and like thread, throughout, dual, twin aspect.
Right. And not necessarily positive, negative. It's not that, or do you feel that that's part of it or not? Or some are some.
I feel like it's like, like having like actual, like say like human twins where, they have like this different, personalities, but, same, share like the same traits.
I would say it's like kind of a nuance, like it's a twin, is the same, but it's a different nuance of the feeling, the same feeling or emotion.
That's interesting. Melissa brings up people, like, twins. I'm thinking like two Twinkies. Two Twinkies. By the way, it was the anniversary for Twinkie yesterday. That's probably what I saw on CBS Sunday Morning. So they were in my mind. It was a landmark for them yesterday or something like that. Cool. And did you enjoy the process, Paul?
Did I? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting way of working because you're given words, and then that's a great sort of initial basis to spring from, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's like, and I think we initially were going to try to divide up who did what, but then I think we just started listening, and then we just, in the end, one of my tasks was to curate the tracks and to sort of put the tracks where, in the end, where I think they fit best. That was challenging for me because I kept going through, and then I heard that one. I go, oh, that might be better for that, and that might be better for that.
Yeah.
And I think also what's challenging is the idea, how we're going to put this on the CD. So I'm working on the CD cover. I had another cover that I sent the ladies. I'll send it to you, Paul, as well, where I'm actually using the artwork from the book, from Richard Frank.
I mean, as far as I can see, the last question is, how did you first meet? So how did you meet Denise? I'm assuming. Because we never met, so like I'm assuming, how did you and Denise met?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm not that sure. In a dream. I think I met her through a friend of mine that was running a recording studio, and Denise might confirm this. I'm not sure, and that would have been around about 1982 or 3 or something.
Much later, it was 86.
Was it? You're joking. Yeah. God, my memory's bad.
Well, 85, and I don't think I met you right away. Did I meet you my first year? was like 85, 86, something like that.
Oh, okay.
Funny.
Yeah. Fake news.
Yeah. Yeah. You know who asked? Saul Demlin, who you also work with.
Yeah.
AKA, BS. We had drinks in New York, and we had drinks. And he said, he goes, "Well, how did you meet Paul?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a great question. You know, when you know someone long." And
disappeared.
He disappeared. Mine was not a dream; it was a nightmare. Just kidding.
Oh, lots of editing to do.
I keep repeating it. So I remember, I think it was either a rehearsal studio or a recording studio. I think you're right there. And I remember you were kind of sitting there or standing there, and you asked what I was doing, and blah, 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 blah. And so I think that's what happened. I think one of us, you introduced yourself to me, but I remember being outside. We weren't actually in the studio. We were like in the waiting area or in the lobby area. And you were hanging, and so that's how we met. And then we exchanged numbers. Thank you, Paul, for bringing out so much in me.
You're welcome.
And I had the idea to do this Blaze Without Burning. William was so excited because William loves music, and he really, he does. He's he knows a lot about a lot of things, and he loves music, and I think he thought it was a really cool idea, and he wants us to start kind of integrating it more, into the promotion. But I was going to say, which I forgot, is how to list the songs, because the same title happens twice on the CD. And so my idea, Paul, is to have a page on William's website that kind of lists the tracks, that, talks, kind of gives us our kudos, and then, for the writing and producing of it. And then it lists each song. So, okay, so I don't know exactly when we're going to release this. Book release is May 3rd, so we'll try to get this out, the audio, the music that goes with the poems at the same time. We also might, what's really interesting, Paul, is I know you probably won't, but we were thinking we could play some of the music live at some of the book launches, some of the book signings. And I thought, wouldn't it be awesome if Paul could come over and play live? But we'll talk about it, but we're going to certainly play the music, at these, when he's doing his book signings.
Yeah.
And promote it as such. So anything, Paul, you want to share with us about anything?
No, I was going to say, quite interestingly, Brian Ferry's just got a new album out, and he's put music to poetry. No
way!
Yeah. Basically, he's put music to poetry. And the poet, I've forgotten her name now, she talks it, she speaks it.
See, yeah, that's one thing we're not doing at the moment. We're not having poetry. And that's like your other person, she walks in beauty. He spoke over the music. This, we're not having any speaking over the music, right? We're just doing it plain. I'm not going to, William might want to record him talking it and speaking it. Who's the woman that reads for the Brian Ferry stuff?
I've forgotten her name now. He's worked with her before. You can find it out. But it's really good.
What's it called?
I've forgotten what it's called. It's very like Roxy music, actually.
Oh, cool.
That's an interesting combination.
We're in good. You said Byron, right? And then Ferry. We're a good.
Byron Ferry, yeah.
Yeah.
Solicitors.
Yeah. William Byron Ferry. Okay, cool. Well, this is. I think it's good. I think we finally put a voice behind the guy who's been editing the podcast all these years. It's been cool. I've enjoyed it. I'm curious to see how the CD is received. Hopefully it'll be a positive thing. By the way, I like the new stuff, the new mixes. I think they sound, in the new mastering, I think it sounds good. Paul.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, yeah.
Thank you. I think it's really cool. We're not listening to it for a while. I'm like, this is cool. It's good. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's good to take a break sometimes, isn't it? Yeah.
Right on. Okay, so thanks so much, Paul, from North London.
You're welcome.
Really enjoyed. And thanks, Melissa, and thanks, Maggie. And then we're going to bring William in somehow. We're going to talk. Maybe he's going to listen and talk about it and share his thoughts on things.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting.
Till next time, lots of love. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so William May, I want to ask you a couple questions about music and poetry and how it feels to know that music has been inspired by your poems. Like, what did music mean to you growing up? What does it mean to you now, etc.?
I think everyone kind of is exposed to music in life. I think music is always a presence in our culture. It's something that, and I like to dance, and that was something that I think was important to me. I think also that, like, for me, as a writer, as a poet in particular, I think a lot about music in terms of, in terms of my poetry, in terms of language. I certainly feel like poetry is not simply just, words on a page in the way that, like, a piece of prose is, that there's, a sort of multimedia component with the musicality and the shape of the poem and things
Sure.
like that. So, sorry?
And the rhythm as well, I would imagine.
Yeah, the musicality, the rhythm, the meter, the use of language itself, in terms of, the specific sounds of consonants and vowels that are being used to create both physical sensations as you speak and read, and also the oral AURAL component.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? How it feels when you say a word. It's something we don't think about. When a word comes out, you think about it perhaps more with poetry, but when words come out of your mouth, it's how they feel. Like, I wonder,
as a
love.
poet, we talk a lot about that, actually. We talk about that feeling of, like, I can remember, in workshops talking about, like, the way a poem feels in the mouth, the way certain lines feel. Sometimes you feel like you're almost eating the language.
Interesting. Yeah. So cool. So music has always been part of your life. You've been influenced by it. I see, people can't see this, but I can see behind you there's a piano. Did you ever study an instrument?
Well, I played a little bit of music when I was in school. The school I went to had a music program. They did guitar, I think was the instrument that I was not very good at it. And I have tried to learn the piano. I play harmonica fairly adequately. And I sing.
And you sing. I think I've heard you
lessons when I was in college.
Oh, cool.
It's a very funny story. When I was in college, I went to Sarah Lawrence as an undergraduate, and the theater program at Sarah Lawrence is designed so you take a number of smaller classes that make up your class credit. So instead of, like, going and taking, acting 101, you go to the department, you say, I want to pledge a third of my credits for this semester to the department. And then you take 4 or 5 theater classes.
Wow.
And the year that I was taking theater, there was a class, a singing class. And I had always grown up being like, I cannot sing. I had never sang in any way that was, like, public. I sang in the car, you know what I mean? Right. And a friend of mine, like, was auditioning for the class, and I said something about how, I wish I could sing so I could take it. And he said, I dare you to go audition. And I said, fine, I'll go audition. So I went to audition, and I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't even know I needed to prepare a song or anything. Like, I was out of my element.
So you got
I
there.
show up at this audition, and the teacher says, okay, what are you going to sing? And I'm like, what do you mean, what am I going to sing? And so, like, I grew up going to Broadway and hearing Broadway show tunes with my parents. I'm from New York. It's part of the world that I lived in.
Yep.
So the woman playing the piano says, do you know any songs? And I say, what about Some Enchanted Evening? She says, I know that. I can play that. So she plays it, and I caterwaul out my version of this, and the teacher lets me get maybe a line in and looks at me and says, you cannot sing. And I go, I know that. And she says, but you have a voice. You just don't know how to use it. You're projecting, you can sing. Physically, you have the ability. You just need to learn to use it. Wow. And she writes me this slip and says, go to the theater program or to the music department and bring this slip. They're going to have you audition, but don't worry, the audition is formal. So I go to the audition and I walk in, and there's 5 or 6 theater teachers and the same woman playing the piano. And she looks at me and she says, I'll play Some Enchanted Evening for you again. And I'm like, okay. I start to try to sing, and the theater teachers stop me and they go, no, no, no. And one says, no, it's like this. And I felt like these voices coming at me, like literally like pushing me out the window of these singing teachers trying to get me on key. And I'm trying to sing, and this one guy jumps up hearing me and he goes, him, I want to teach him. And that was a voice teacher named Wayne Sanders.
Wow.
And he wound up giving me voice lessons that year for a year.
Okay.
Which, you know,
so that's how you,
not
that's
that
a great story.
I'm a great singer now, but I'm much better than I ever was.
Cool. So let's switch now to poetry, because that's what we're really mostly about, I think, on this podcast. Argh, not a podcast about book publishing. So let's talk about the music part. And I know you wanted to ask me some questions. I've picked out for the podcast, I've picked out a poem that I think works with the music that goes with it, because I think we shared a bit about, you know, we've shared already on the podcast that we're doing the music with Paul A. Harvey. And so now we're going to continue with you're asking some questions, unless you want to go right into the music and the poetry. It's up to you.
Well, no, I mean, I think before we get there, I think, first of all, I wanted to talk for just a second about, you know, how this idea started. Because, I mean, it was your sort of brainchild. You read the book and you kind of had a response to it. And,
yes.
I mean, first of all, I think to get into that, I want to give, you know, we've mentioned it once or twice, I think, on the podcast. But, you know, I know you're here on this podcast generally in a very different role than you play in much of your life. And I'm really fortunate that I have someone like you on my team in a lot of ways. And one of the things that's really exciting is that this isn't just a piece of music that my friend is making, but you are actually an internationally known recording artist.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I mean, for those that don't know, and I think I'll give a little bit of background because I think that's what you're looking for, William. You know, I started my music career when I was very young. I've been singing and performing for most of my life. And when I decided to put my own record out, my debut record, I wanted to go indie, had some big publishing deals, and different situations with my career had happened. You know, highs and lows and things that didn't come to fruition, I decided to put my own record out. I didn't have the budget. I didn't have any money to hire a publicist, which I never knew the word publicist until I finished the album. So I decided to put my own PR campaign together myself. So that's how I got into PR. And so when I did that, I actually had such a great respect for how important it is to promote the work that you do. And we've talked about that, William, where your braggadocious podcast, where you kind of, you're not one to stand on top of a box and say, I've just released my book. So, and I wasn't either. And so you learn how to be more comfortable with promoting your work. And you also learn how much it takes to promote something, especially someone who's just getting started, which back when I released Self I was, and which you are now. And so that's how I bring the two together. And so when we have been working together on your PR marketing, because I love helping other people with their dreams, and I only do it for a few, mostly in arts and entertainment and health and wellness. And so, I've loved your poetry. I have a great respect for you and all that you've gone through and how determined you are, and even how much you write. Like, you are an amazing, prolific writer. And I think that's really important when you're doing what you're doing, when you're doing something creative from inside, taking it outside. I think doing it more and more and more, like you said. What did you say? Something about the more, the effort you put into it. And I come up with ideas. But with William, I thought to myself, I remember our conversations, William, about music and how important it is to you and how you grew up in the West Village. And for me, I was reading the poetry and I thought, why don't we do music to go with it? Now, I don't mean music like, and then you speak with the music under it. I wanted the music to speak on its own, to have its own voice related to the poetry. So that's how the idea came.
It is interesting to hear about how you got into PR and everything, but I'm curious about your journey as a musician, because that feels very relevant to this project, to talk a little bit about, as I said, you're a pretty established musician at this point. You have, a number of albums out, you have work out there I know you were recently charting in Europe and stuff. So, I think it's interesting. I know you said you're self-taught when you were talking to Paul.
Yes.
So how did you get into music? Was it something that, like, when you were a child, you just were always into music? Was it something that you came to later?
I just naturally was a performer. I do have some performers in my family. We've had some various filmmakers, actors, singers. My dad was pretty talented, very creative. And I think I was very supported by my parents. And they saw that I could pick up an instrument and play it pretty much without any lesson, whether it was a drum, 2 drumsticks, or piano or guitar. And so I never really liked taking lessons. So when I moved to New York, I used to sneak into NYU practice rooms, which they know about, which they've okayed, because I did my show, The Pass, and I actually used their logo, and because they okayed it, I told them the whole story. So I used to sneak in. I had my success. I got the pass. Long story. It's all part of my career, and I just banged out. And the only songs I can ever play on piano are on my own. Like, I don't know how to play other songs. I could figure them out. So I'm just self-taught, and I don't write music. So what I do is I write the letters. So if I hit a chord, which, that sounds cool. If the pinky or the ring finger is doing a C sharp in the bottom, I'll write C sharp, and then I'll put a dash, and then the right hand's doing C sharp, G sharp, A sharp. Then I write the letters down, or I always write sharp. I don't usually write flats. It's funny. I like the hashtag, always have. And so I'm a hashtag girl. So that's how it came to be. I just taught myself, and then I started writing songs, and then I started singing them in clubs, and then I got discovered in New York clubs. So I went to see an engineer at Columbia Studios at the time, Don Palouse. I sang for him live, one on piano, one on guitar, and he signed me. It was my first management deal. And at the time, the person that was in the studio with him was the artist that asked me to sing on the duet in England, my first hit record. So it's all just kind of providence. being at the right place at the right time, really, like you said, focusing on something. I really wanted to be a songwriter. I used to sit at my mom's vanity and pretend I was playing piano. I always wanted to play the piano, so I taught myself. And it was definitely grueling. I got this chord chart while I was down the shore, spending some time with my grandparents in Bradley Beach. And there was a music store, and they had this laminated big old chart, which I still have, which I just saw last week. So it's been an interesting journey, very much about my ear and my heart and my soul. They're all part of it. I hear something, I think of a lyric, write it down, and then and then a song comes. And usually my songs come very quickly. I don't labor over the tracks. I just, I go to the keyboard, I go to my studio, I've got Pro Tools, and I've got I have a sequencer, and I have a keyboard that has drum sounds, bass sounds. So I put all the parts together, and then I worked with various co-producers on the tracks, including Paul A. Harvey. So
no, I think that gives a better idea to people of like where this music is coming from. First of all, obviously, if people enjoy this, they should go out and find your music and Paul's music and everything. But
sure.
Where you as a musician sort of come from. Now, I would ask you, you asked Paul about this as well. I'm curious if you had ever written songs in relation to a piece of writing, poetry, or
No.
maybe in relation to something else.
No, in fact, I've done some for films, for one or two films. I've done some instrumental composing. Indie films. I think even a TV series when I was in LA.
How did this compare as an experience?
It's just, I can't explain it. It's like sort of like how probably when you sit down and then a poem comes out. Sure. I knew that I wanted to read, and I knew that I wanted it to be avant-garde. I told Paul, I don't want this to be mainstream. And this is very different than my own music. My songs, I think all my songs are very different. I'm someone I'm a very eclectic songwriter. And I also think I'm an eclectic vocalist because I sing to fit the song. But for this stuff, I was sort of just wanting, I actually thought of you physically. I thought of your voice, and I thought of your demeanor, and I thought of all who you are and all you've been through and what this book means to you. And I wanted there to be hope in the music, and I wanted there to be inspiration. I also wanted it to be a little left of center. So that's kind of how I A&R'd it with Paul, and there were a couple of things that he first sent that I was like, that's not what I had in mind. And then I started to write more. Initially, I wanted him to write more, and then I started to put some of my own stuff out there, and he quickly understood where I was going with this. And I liked that. Having no words, here's an intro, here's a chorus, here's a verse, here's a bridge. It was just free form and very, very experimental. So that's pretty much what it is. Do you want to do the poem first and then the music?
That's fine.
How do you want
if that's what. That's fine with me.
I'm just curious because Denise, you said that you chose the poem. The poem is "Care for Your Tools." Why did you choose that poem? The music and the poem, obviously.
Interesting question. I think it leads me to one of the finer qualities of Mr. William May, is his ability to be very kind and nurturing. And I also am someone who loves to do things around the house. I actually have a red tool chest. It's really big and heavy. I keep it under the sink. And I also know that if you don't care for your tools, they're not going to work if you don't maintain them. But I feel that about everything in life. If you don't maintain your friendships, if you don't maintain your cars, if you don't maintain your body, I think care for your tools, for me, was a metaphor for care for, caring, period. And I think William's a very caring person. It's a good example of, for me, who he is, how he writes, and also how unique his titles can be.
Care for your tools. It tore, ripped, shred up, accumulated holes, the seams stretched, disastrous. But what is that coming out from those holes? Something has found a way into this world through what has been torn asunder.
I love it. the musical component. Okay, so the next one, right? And then you'll be reading 22, on page 22, but first the music. Here's the music first this time.
Care for your tools. You think the danger is the sharpness of the blade, but ask anyone who uses a knife, a chef, a fisherman, anyone who knows it all will say the dulled edge is the one most likely to cut your hand.
So how do you feel about the music now? I mean, does it feel different to you? Let's ask Meggie. Does it feel different to you to hear the poem and the music, or the music and the poem?
It definitely feels different, because when you're listening to the songs and you're reading, you don't have the chance to compare both. So you listen to one and then you continue to the next, and you don't have the chance to listen to the opposite one. Like how do they connect? And you as the musician know that, because you kind of like made the difference between one and the other. They're reflecting each other, but you can't. I think it's the first time I can actually see the similarity and the difference, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, that's what we were striving for, so to speak. And what I feel, so poetry is, it's a visceral experience for me, more than reading other things like a newsletter or a newspaper or a book. There's something more visual for me about poetry. And I think when you add the music, even before or after, however anyone chooses to, someone could listen to the music and read at the same time, or listen to the music and then read. They can do one at a time. They can do the whole thing. But for me, it almost gives it more of a surround sound, but more of a 3D thought about the poetry.
I hope everyone enjoyed the podcast. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends. If you didn't, share it with your enemies.
Yeah. There you
I
go.
think that's where we landed on a sign off.
We talk about other things different than poetry. We also talk about music, as you can see.
Yeah. And Meggie, thank you, as always, for facilitating the conversation. Thank you.
Argh, Not Another Podcast About Book Publishing, is produced by Denise Marsa, Meggie Dimitrova, and William May. Please visit williammaywrites.com for social media links, recited poems, and more.